Hello everyone, I am here at E3 2019 and I just got done watching some behind closed doors gameplay of Marvel's Avengers, which is a game being published by Square Enix and developed by Crystal Dynamics. So if you were with me there at E3 watching my live stream, then you will know that I wasn't particularly keen on the showcase that they had. They barely showed any gameplay. They kind of hinted and showed glimpses via a trailer, but we didn't really get to see a full walkthrough like we expected. Well, with this private showcase, I got to see that alongside other members of the press. And I will say this, it definitely left me much more optimistic about the game's prospects. I'm still concerned about a few things. I am not fully sold on it yet, but seeing the game in action without interruptions, seeing continuous gameplay helped quite a bit. So the first thing that I took away from it is that combat looks a lot of fun, and each Avenger actually plays quite differently. The demo takes place during A-Day, which we saw glimpses of in the trailer, and that whole portion, that whole footage we saw during Square Enix's press conference, that's the demo. That's sort of the intro portion of the game. It's a celebration day for the Avengers, and then everything goes awry. Just shit starts going haywire, and the Avengers have to find a way to stop whatever's happening, calm people down, and the demo begins as the camera pans to Thor, and we get to see him in action. And this was live gameplay, by the way. I thought it was going to be pre-recorded footage that they were going to then show us, but there was someone playing there, and he made a couple mistakes, and I like that personally. I like it when gameplay is imperfect. That only proves to me that this is, tangible, that this isn't super scripted and made to look super shiny. This felt real. So Thor, the way he plays, I would describe him as Kratos from the new God of War with a Leviathan axe, except Thor has a hammer, and he can throw it, kind of nail people to the wall, and he can bring it back and kind of use that for combos. He also has lightning-based, thunder-based abilities as well. He can take his hammer, smash it on the ground. It's going to create lightning everywhere. He can kind of swing his hammer and really hit people super hard, and it'll send him flying like quite a distance away. He feels very powerful, but if I had to describe it in one word, it would be Kratos. So that's Thor, and then from there we move on to Iron Man, who is kind of basically an Anthem javelin, just kind of flies around, and you can at any point start shooting laser beams from your hands as Iron Man does. Now, one thing that I'm curious about for Iron Man is if his flight versus his ground gameplay, if that's going to be implemented seamlessly so you can switch back and forth as you're playing the game, or if there are going to be certain stages where you only do flight and certain stages where you're only on the ground. I hope it's kind of like Anthem, where it is just seamless. You have an open area and you can fly around whenever you want, land on the ground. But yeah, Iron Man is just, you fly around Anthem style and shoot everything around you. There's a target, you can bring up a reticule that you can use to shoot at targets and all that. And there are a number of aerial maneuvers you can do as you're flying around. You can kind of spin and move from side to side, and there are kind of homing elements as well, so you don't have to be super accurate. There's just like a big area where if you get enemies in there, it'll automatically shoot them while you're flying through the air, which I think is for the better. It makes things simpler. So that's pretty much Iron Man. From there, we moved on to Hulk. That was my favorite part. He's just power fantasy. He's just a giant truck that you can use to wreck everything around you. Hulk specializes in grabbing people and just throwing them around. That's sort of the main thing that I saw. He took one guy, for example, and started swinging him around back and forth. He, at one point, took two guys and smashed them together. And he also does the usual, Hulk smash, the Hulk clap smash, whatever you call that move, which sends a shockwave that pushes enemies back, all that good stuff. Hulk is also powerful enough to tip over tanks and throw vehicles, so he's just a lot of fun. Seems like one of the more fleshed out Hulk action-adventure experiences, so I'm actually really looking forward to getting my hands on Hulk. So all of that is taking place outside. Captain America is inside some compound, so the perspective shifts to him after a bit. And he's also really cool, actually. He's more akin to Thor, where it's very much like combatant type of character, But the dynamic with the shield is really interesting. One of the first things the player did was take the shield, charge it up, and then throw it, and it just kind of bounced around everywhere and took out a couple guards by its own. So that was really cool. He can take a shield and smash it on the ground. He can throw the shield and, you know, fight fisticuffs, do all kinds of combinations. And there's also that move where he takes the shield and punches it to create a sound blast or some kind of shockwave that pushes enemies back. All this stuff, all the usual suspects you might expect are there. And it's really well animated, actually. It looks really compelling. Last but not least, we have Black Widow. She was the last character we saw in action. And the way they showed her was that Taskmaster eventually arrived at the scene, and there was a one-on-one battle between her and Taskmaster. For my part, I felt like she looked like the least compelling character to play as. I think if I had to describe her, it'd be more like the Arkham series type of combat, where it's much more grounded and it's less fantastical. Well, she does have pistols that she can actually deploy at any point. The dual pistols that she traditionally has, that's there. You can probably hold the shoulder button and shoot at any time, bring it up whenever. And it has ammo, and you have to keep track of that because she'll have to reload. But yeah, she uses a combination of the dual pistols and her combat capabilities to wreck enemies. Though we didn't get to see her kind of in action with lighter enemies. She was strictly just fighting Taskmaster. It was like a one-on-one boss battle. And yeah, I saw the player shooting and then going back into fisticuffs. And obviously she's a lot more maneuverable than other characters. She does all kinds of kind of athletic, very acrobatic maneuvers. So her combat style also feels pretty different from the other characters. But I don't know if it was because the player struggled a little bit with this boss battle. They were kind of getting kicked around a bit before they got their stuff together and fought back and finally beat the boss. But it felt like her combat wasn't as impactful. It didn't have that sense of oomph that other characters did. But maybe it was because she was fighting a boss and not the goons who you can beat up and have that power fantasy with. But she did have some cool equipment. She, aside from the gun, she could pull out like what do they call they're like sticks that you wield like this, and it's kind of like a backhanded blade, except it sticks, and she kind of used that to beat some enemies up. And her fist can also generate shockwaves when she punches. So through the combination of all of these elements, the combat looks very fluid. It looks pretty fun. Although whether this combat system can hold up throughout the course of an entire campaign, that remains to be seen. From what I could tell, every character has a left bumper and a right bumper ability that they can deploy at any time, though it does have a cooldown. So you do have to be strategic with the timing of using that, making sure that you use it only when it's appropriate. And yeah, that's pretty much how the demo ends. Clearly, there's somebody else behind all of this. You know, Taskmaster is just the beginning. And then there's that one cutscene showing the ship kind of crashing to the sea, and it kind of destroys the surrounding area, the city nearby. And that's when the Avengers get flagged as criminals and they get ousted, and that's sort of where the story really begins. And it's a story about redemption and all of these elements, and it's a lot seemingly about the interplay between the Avengers amidst these precarious circumstances. You saw that one scene where Tony confronts Bruce Banner and all that. It should be noted that this was clearly the intro portion of the game, so there were a lot of quick-time events that, I'm not too fond of quick-time events, but if they're only there sporadically, I'm fine with that. That's not to say it was all QTEs. It was a lot of live combat as well. It was a good combination of both, but because this was the intro portion, it felt very linear, very on rails almost. I'm wondering if the game opens up once the intro portion is over, if there are kind of sandbox-type worlds, or if the game as a whole is more of like an Uncharted type of experience where it is for the most part pretty linear. That remains to be seen, but the folks over at Square Enix are promising sort of this epic action-adventure game, so hopefully there is some elements of openness. It would be cool to use Iron Man as a means to traverse the world using his aerial capabilities and all that. So yeah, there you have it, folks. That's sort of my general impressions. It's basically the trailer you saw in Square Enix's press conference, extrapolated upon with actual gameplay. That's pretty much what I saw. Now, I am still worried about the live service elements that they touted. I'm wondering if that's going to have a significant impact on the enjoyment of the game. And yes, they said no pay to win and no loot boxes, but that doesn't mean that microtransactions can't have a tangible effect on the rewards and progression system. So hopefully that's something that they can extrapolate upon down the line, something they can reassure people about, because we have seen too much bullshit on that front for us to just take their word for it. I'm also worried about how the live service element, about them making this a continuous single-player experience, how that might affect the game's launch, how it might result in a half-assed product, half-baked product that they're like, we can finish it down the line, it's cool, we can rush it out. I hope that's not the case. I hope we get a solid foundation that they then expand upon through comprehensive expansions that actually feel like they're adding on top, not finishing construction. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I have to say about Avengers. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions that I failed to answer through this video, and I'll do my best to respond. And to be further updated on all things E3 2019, stay tuned right here on Yong Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Yong out.